And even though it sounds like shit when somebody says, you needed that car accident or you needed, this person to pass away. No, it's more about the way you think about it is whatever came from it was a lesson.
You talk about how, and this is something you shared in your TED Talk, I love this statement that adversity is a privilege. You spoke about how, when we talk about privilege, we often talk about education, social status, like things that, yes, play a part in privilege. But I love this idea that adversity is a privilege. And I've kind of had the same thoughts. Now, I have a very different backstory in kind of how I grew up. But my family, my parents, they got divorced when I was 9. And they remarried each other and then they got divorced again. So it was a very much like very constantly changing environment. And I always think about how I'm the oldest of 4. And I always think about how the 4 of us have this amazing like emotional maturity, and we're really kind of, I don't know, I think mature is the best way to say it. And I just feel like sometimes you would look at situations like that and people always feel sorry for the children and expect it to have like a really adverse effect on them. But I almost feel like because it was so tumultuous, I almost had this raised, what's the word? Like I had a raised baseline in terms of what I could tolerate or like deal with. So talk to me a little bit about how you see adversity as a privilege and how did you actually come to that reframe? Because I think it's a really powerful one.
I gotta say, I did not come into this like breakthrough moment where I was like, I have figured it all out, or it didn't just hit me. I've had to suffer, and my suffering was pretty self-inflicted. And the reason I say this is because sure, there was a series of events that happened that are tough and very tough and would, take anybody down. However, it was kind of the aftermath of the why me? Why is it that my 2 creators, my father and my mother, didn't want me? So why would that abandonment happen to me? Why was it all this way? What have I done wrong? How could I have, you almost start to take it, like when you're a kid, you don't really know. You trust these 2 people and you want them to take care of you. They're your carers. They're supposed to be your everything. And then when they let you down, it's so hard not to take that personally. So I went through some deep suffering of victimhood. And let's be honest, like I was a victim of that experience, but I'm not a victim of what it can cause. So like, I don't have to let it affect me in a way where I just, throw my life in the bin and just do a bunch of drugs and take, and just give up. I can let it be something else. And that was again a point in my life where I was like, I've done that bit. I've suffered, I've been depressed, and I've tried, to numb it and escape, but it just obviously isn't working for me because it's just getting worse. And anybody who's experienced depression would understand and would know that as much as you try to mask it, the more it's going to actually be prevalent, and long term, it's just going to get worse. And so I kind of had no other choice but to start to read and try to ask the world for answers, because I really struggled with, I didn't have any friends because we were moving like every 6 months. So I didn't have any stable friends. I wasn't really this confident person who's like, let me go make new friends. I was working a job at folding clothes at 15 in Houston, Texas. So I didn't really have this like social capacity to go and socialize and make new connections. Actually, connection was really scary for me. So when it got to the point of the lowest of the low, I think that's when it started to come to me that if I don't really step up and try to frame this differently, I am going to die. Like I am actually going to, run myself into a wall. And so I think that was kind of just a survival mode that kicked in where I was like, wait a minute, I really do love life. I want to be around. I want to meet new people and make new connections. And I don't know what my dream is. My dream is to survive right now. And how can I do this? And what happened is it started to become a step by step. And as the days go by, I started to be like, okay, maybe I can help myself in this way. Maybe I don't want to fold clothes all day. Maybe let me try to get a job at a restaurant where when people would come in, I would meet new faces and I would say hi and I'd have a little bit more human connection. So, to answer your question, it really came with a bunch of experiences stacked on top of each other, along with suffering and pain. And it all was like into this Kit Kat that just was my life. And I just have to accept everything as it came. It's so amazing because now I used to really, really look back and feel sorry for myself for the tears that I've cried. And now I look back and I go, wow, that is amazing, because I could never be here if I didn't actually go through all of these things. And now if somebody is in that stuck mode and they don't know where to go except for down, then maybe I would have the tools to be able to help them. So I think that we have to think about it in a way where there really isn't any other way to do it. You have all the tools, the knowledge, resources, the books, the podcasts. Now more than ever, we live in an amazing world full of content. There are ways to be inspired and to get yourself out of that hole. It's not forever.
So when you talk about adversity being a privilege, you're kind of looking at all the things that have happened in your life, good, bad, that have kind of built this foundation on which you sit and are able to be who you are today, right? That's like how we look at adversity, and that's how you kind of came to that tagline. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. You need what's happened for you. It didn't happen to you. You need it. And even though it sounds like shit when somebody says, you needed that car accident, or you needed, this person to pass away. No, it's more about the way you think about it is whatever came from it was a lesson. And sometimes even the hardest things in life, like grief, and just pain in every shape and form, it's awful, but it really, if you use it well, you can make something good out of it.
Yeah. And I think the only thing I'll add to that, which you have touched on, is, I mean, hindsight's a beautiful thing. So like actually going through it and then being able to reflect and using that as a pillar of strength is also really, really important. If you guys enjoyed this clip, then you are bound to love the entire episode I did with this guest. I'm going to put a link to it up on the screen now, and make sure you're subscribed to this channel so you don't miss any future episodes.